everyone. I'm Tamara, the host for Gleaner Premium's Premium Health, Beauty and Wellness online show. We launched last year, but this year we'll be focusing on self-care for the busy professional. Understanding the importance of self-care to one's mental health, making time for self-care to improve one's physical health, and do-it-yourself self-care before and after work. I'm excited and I hope you are too. Our first guest is Dr. Mark Ricketts, a medical doctor from Riveting Medical Center.
I'm Dr. Mark Ricketts, a family physician practicing out of Riveting Medical Center and Willardine Family Medical Center. I'm a graduate of the University of the West Indies Medical School and who have garnered in excess of 20 years of experience practicing medicine in Jamaica's medical landscape. Self-care, from my perspective, it surrounds one guiding principle, which I think encapsulates most of the things that we should remember. And that principle is, I take care of myself. It means that we have to make time for ourselves, and also it's okay to take care of yourself. There are a lot of instances when doctors feel almost guilty for making the time, making the opportunity to take care of themselves, because they feel like it is at the sacrifice of their patients. Well, unless you're able to take care of yourself, you're unable to, in any fulsome sense, take care of your patients. It's impossible to feed someone else from an empty cup. There's a wide range of illnesses that can result from a lack of self-care. In my practice, I see on a daily basis, maybe 3, 4, 5 patients with significant anxiety issues. And a lot of that is born out of a lack of self-care. Now, from a medical perspective, from how we look at patients and we look at their background, look at their histories, you can actually see the anxieties, the depressions, the sleep abnormalities. You see elevations in their blood pressure because they're not paying attention to their sleep. You see a wide range of such illnesses. It's also become very topical during the COVID pandemic. What we noted is that there's a huge uptick in the amount of patients who present to our offices with anxiety-related disorders and depression, sleep disturbances. And just to be clear, almost all of the chronic illnesses are touched on by your inability to take care of yourself, by your inability to apply the effort and the time needed to get the necessary exercise, to get a proper cycle of sleep and allow your body to replenish and to heal overnight. Taking care of your diet, just looking at these very many things that allow you to be at your maximum potential for you to deal with all of the curveballs that life is going to throw at you. The society as it's set up today, it's set up to extract more from you while leaving you with very much little time for you to take care of yourself. We end up working longer hours, but not just longer hours, not longer hours physically in the office or in the workplace. It's simply because there's so much connectivity now that you actually take homework. We're connected by our email, we're connected by our phones, and we are accessing work material late into the night. Back in the 80s and 90s, our parents went to work at 8:30, they came home at 4:30, and there was separation, meaning they unplugged from this work situation. Which brings me to the next topic. There is so much stimulation now from electronic gadgetry, from your social media, your email, your tablets, your phone, and it plays a role because it disallows you from functionally disconnecting from some of the things that you need to. And we need to make time on a daily basis for us to unplug and disconnect. And as you would say, get in touch with yourself. Allow yourself to just enjoy the sheer pleasures of just life without all of that stimulation being thrown at you. There's also the functional concept of toxic situations, toxic people, toxic environments that you need to find a way to limit. And in the In the truest sense, it may not necessarily be selfish for you to actually decide that I'm going to disconnect from this person because they are not good for me because they're toxic, or this situation. I have patients now who are severely, severely ill, and it's because of the debilitating nature of their job as it relates to stress. And they have all of these stress-related issues. And ultimately, and I will never be able to say to a patient, it's time for you to leave your job. But they know this. They know that this is at the root of their problem. I've seen a lot of patients in today's society that are, subject to the stresses of time being limited, their jobs, etc. There's this concept that I have. It's something I call the out-of-town syndrome. These are the patients that live in areas surrounding Kingston. They live in Old Harbour, they live in Linstead, they live in Spanish Town. What that means is that they get up at 4:30 and 5 o'clock in the morning to get to work. They sit in traffic for how long? At the end of the day, they pick up their children, they sit in the traffic for another hour and a half. By the time they get home, it's almost 8 or 9 o'clock. Then it's time to do homework, prepare a meal. By the time they get to bed, it's 11, 12 o'clock. So you have a patient now who is getting maybe total 4 or 5 hours sleep. And most of them will tell you that their sleep is interrupted. They wake up at least once in the night. So these things actually have a huge effect. So, those are just some of the things we see. So we see the patients that come in, they're agitated, they may not be functioning well at work. They tell you that they have significant issues in terms of memory and concentration, which is usually where the penny drops. When we're having that conversation and I say to them, is it that you're having difficulties with your short-term memory? Do you go into the fridge and find that you can't remember what you went in there for? Do you go into a room and can't remember what you went in there for? All of that is predicated on your sleep. So on a daily basis, we need to tend to the sleep. We should be looking at trying to get, on average, around 30 to 45 minutes of exercise, even if it's just walking 3 times a day. I think that's what the WHO recommends. We should be looking at, trying to make sure that we have that disconnect from the various social media activities, etc. We should be looking at our diet. We should be looking at, and I think a previous speaker actually spoke to the issues regarding diet. One of the things that a lot of people don't also realize is that where a lot of our stress comes from is the fact that we're not organized. There seems to be so much coming at us on a daily basis. And if we were to sit and just spend a few minutes organizing our day, so we know exactly what we're going to take on today, what are the things we can't take on today, it seemingly lessens the amount of stressors that come at us. Very importantly, we need to pay attention to doing things that we love, to doing things that are going to boost our endorphin levels and generally make us feel better. For one person, it may be the exercise. They go to the gym every day. For another person, they sit down and they watch YouTube videos. For me, it's dominoes. That's the area that it takes my mind out of everything else that is happening. So in that hour, 2, 3 hours that I'm playing dominoes, I think about nothing else. Regular self-care, because it ultimately means trying to get your body to get to its maximum potential, its maximum functionality. Of course, it's going to be able to help. I like to look at it, and it's an example I use with my patients a lot. Just imagine you have a car or a truck, a vehicle that you're driving to the country every day, but you're not putting oil in it. It's going to break down. That's the nature of your sleep. That's the nature of how your exercise and your diet affects you. So you need to make sure that you're fully up on your fuels, that you're giving yourself the best chance for you to have a healthy lifestyle. And as we spoke about before, exercise decreases your blood pressure. Exercise makes it easier for us to control your diabetes. Sleep does pretty much the same thing. People who have been struggling with weight gain or an inability to lose weight for years, when we look at it, we may find that they have a sleep pathology. These are some of the things that we must look at. Just a few points in closing. These are the factors, or these are the points that I want you to take home. On a daily basis, pay attention to your sleep. It makes a huge difference. Eat mindfully. Make sure you get enough exercise. Learn to impose boundaries. Boundaries to protect yourself from all of the negative influences that are coming into your life, even if that means people. Get yourself organized. Figure out every day how it is that you're going to manage today, how it is that you're going to be able to cope with everything that you have to do. And last but not least, do something you enjoy. Do something you absolutely love to do.
Thank you, Dr. Ricketts. Up next, we have Dr. Karen Carpenter.
Hi, I'm Dr. Karen Carpenter. I'm head of the Institute for Gender and Development Studies at the University of the West Indies, Mona. I'm also a clinical sexologist, which means I'm a psychologist who specializes in working with people who have sex and relationship issues. I tend to think of psychology as something that we refer to as regular folk going through our days, going through our lives, and having a particular crisis. So we need not be having a prolonged mental health issue to go to a psychologist. We could be having a specific issue at a specific time in our lives. For instance, loss of a family member, loss of a child, loss of a partner. These are times in our lives when we sometimes need mental health support. There are a number of modalities, we call them, ways of treating with mental health issues. And these include CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy is very effective. It's used worldwide. It's used by a lot of the national health services. For instance, in the UK, it's used quite widely. In Canada, it's used quite widely. And what it does is that we assist the client, because psychologists speak about their patients as clients, to reframe the thinking, cognitive, around the things that are proving troublesome for them, so their behaviors, in order to reach a therapeutic end, which is the healing. So we reframe thinking with the assistance and cooperation of the client to achieve new behaviors that have a healing benefit to the person. We can think of, for instance, depression and anxiety. These are two very, very common ones that we work with CBT. There are, as I say, more than 13 modalities that we use. We use very many modalities, and sometimes you might combine one with the other. So you may primarily use CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, but you might want to include reality therapy, you might want to include Gestalt, you might want to include other types of psychodynamic therapy that will assist with the particular situation that the person is facing. And we tend not to fight it, but rather support the person in overcoming it. I think one of the main things we think of, I just mentioned one, that can develop quite unnoticed by family members, by those around you, is depression. Depression often masks itself. So there's a masquerade going on. The person may come to work, they may interact with family members, and they may seem particularly upbeat in order to overcompensate for the depression that they're experiencing. But when they're on their own, they may sink into depression. So yes, if you're not careful, for instance, during the grieving process after a loss, you could sink into depression without quite noticing it until it's become severe, and then you start to miss out on social activities, miss out on work activities, and people suddenly realize that you're sleeping too much, sleeping too little, irritable, not really being yourself, as people call it. So depression is one of those that goes on for some time before we detect it. I think one of the things that we all have to practice is balance. And it's easier said than done. It's very easy to say to somebody, oh, you should live a balanced life. But it's very difficult sometimes. We tend to overcommit. We have to remember that we only have 24 hours in the day. We only have 7 days in the week. So if we take up new commitments, and sometimes these are very noble commitments, for instance, at church or Sunday school, or helping out a neighbor or a family member, we have to remember that we have to give up something else. So it's always important to replace the time that you're taking for others with something for yourself, whether that's quiet time, a walk, even being around your pets, oddly enough, can make you far more happy and resilient if you take some time just to be quiet. Quite important. And of course, exercise. We all emphasize exercise. I think we have to define, each of us, for ourselves, what we consider love. Most people will tell you that love is self-sacrificing. Love is not selfish. Love is giving. But there is a degree of love that if you're doing all of those things, you're not loving yourself. So we have to be very careful of this model of sacrifice as love, because it isn't always the case. If you are going to love me to the extent that you're going to get ill because you are loving me so much you're not loving yourself, I would hardly call that love. So I think we have to define for ourselves, each couple, each unit, parents and children, what we define as love. And when you make that definition, see if it includes something about loving yourself. A very good definition comes from M. Scott Peck. He says, love is a willingness to extend yourself for yourself and for another person. So if you're not extending yourself, you're not going out of your way to take care of yourself, you can hardly take care of another person. So let's separate those. And you notice that I will always speak about love and sex, which is actually my brand, Love and Sex with Dr. Karen Carpenter. Because love is not sex and sex is not love. And they don't go together. They can come together if we're in the kind of relationship that brings those two together. But simply because we're having sex doesn't mean that we're in love. And just because we're in love doesn't mean we have to have sex. So I like to separate them. Falling in love is something I absolutely reject. We do not need to fall. We need to stand. If we stand in love, then we'll take care of ourselves as a love object, and we will give to the other person as good as we give to ourselves. If we're waiting for someone else to come along and fill up our bucket for us, it's not going to happen. You can't love someone if you have nothing to give. So you've got to ensure that you are experiencing wellness before you start to try and offer it to someone else. If I have half a slice of bread, I can only offer you a quarter. If I have a whole slice, I can offer you half, etc., etc. Sex, very important in our lives, and that can be sexual activity with yourself as well as sexual activity with others. And we have to think about what constitutes safe and healthy sexual practices. So yes, sex is an essential part of human development and human health and well-being. And we know that it contributes to our health. Reckless and random sex, perhaps not so much. So we have to make good choices about the sex. We don't put everything in our mouths. We don't eat everything that comes on the plate. So also when it comes to sex, we have to be discerning and choose those things that are healthy for ourselves. You might have such a healthy sex life that you are taken away from work because you'd rather be having sex. It's far more gratifying. What I am suggesting is that sex is not something foreign to good health. It's not something that you add on, top it up with sex. Sex is a part of being healthy as a human being. It's essential for reproduction. It's essential for our existence on the planet. And it actually has some very positive benefits. So I'm not seeing it as something separate from eating, sleeping, drinking, and all the other things we do to stay alive. It's very much a part of life, but we treat it as some separate compartment. You're in the workplace and you notice either in yourself or a coworker that they're doing a particular thing excessively. This is one of the signals of depression. People go to excesses, either to compensate for the low mood that they're feeling or to ensure that no one detects that they're feeling low, because this is something that they only do when they're at home and close the door. So when we see people operating in a way that is excessive in their behavior, perhaps also they could be excessively sleepy and droopy. But depressed people don't actually come in sad with a long face, It shows up in lots of other types of behaviors. Irritability, poor sleep patterns, poor eating patterns, whether excessive eating or not eating enough, excessive sleeping or not sleeping enough. And also, as it progresses, we look at self-care in terms of the way the person presents at work. So the person who would naturally be a little bit tidier, etc., comes to work and they're disheveled in some way, or they seem not to be keeping good hygiene. These are all signs that could mean depression. The healthy person is going to be in balance with what the job demands. And I like to say to people, especially since COVID, where we're sitting behind a computer all the time, think about work as driving. You're advised as a driver to stop every hour, get out of the car and stretch so that you stay alert. I recommend the same thing for work. No matter how much work you're doing, if you can get up every hour or two, Get some fresh air. Just walk outside the building, taking a breath of fresh air, walk around the car park and come back to work. You're going to be far healthier mentally than if you're stuck at this desk, ensuring that you get this thing done because you have this deadline. You will function better and more efficiently. So take frequent breaks, have enough water, make sure you get out in the fresh air. We live in a very beautiful country. I don't see how you could be sad when you walk outside and see that blue sky. It's gorgeous. So get a breath, come back in, finish your work.
Thank you, Dr. Carpenter. Self-care is essential. October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Here are some breast cancer self-care tips. Breast cancer self-care tips. Self-care is not selfish. The general rule is that women 50 years and older should have mammograms every 2 years. Your doctor can help you to determine the best schedule for your regular screenings. Find a way to prioritize yourself daily. You can take a 10-minute break to enjoy a cup of tea, a short walk, or your favorite blog. As many breast cancers are found by women themselves through self-examination or by accident, it's very important to become breast aware and get into the habit of regularly checking your breast. As the earlier breast cancer is found, the better the treatment options are. Great tips! Now it's time to hear from the Face Place, where their tagline is, "Take good care of yourself."
I am Marie Hall-Smith, Director of the Face Place Spa and Institute located at 3 Carvalho Drive. For my busy professionals out there, one of the treatments you must do is a hydrofacial at the Face Place Spa. This treatment covers a wide range of skin types and it offers multiple benefits, especially to renew luminosity and a glow to the skin. The benefits of this hydrofacial is that it restores the skin's firmness, it gives you an amazing glow and luminosity, it's also suited for all skin types, and for mature skin, it brings back firmness to the skin. For the busy professional who can't find the time for herself, make time for yourself and treat yourself to one of these luxurious treatments here at the Face Place Spa. The most luxurious one we have that's new is a hydrofacial. This treatment really detoxifies, firms, cleans the skin where you can't. So after a tiring week of work, your skin is just as fatigued as your body. Take good care of it while you're taking good care of yourself. The treatment involves many steps that really help to clarify, clean, purify, and really regenerate and rejuvenate new skin cells so that that lost glow is restored, luminosity and the skin's health is ultimately peaked after the treatment. Rejuvenate, renew, restore your skin's health with one of our professional, customizable treatments here at the Face Place Spa. Gift yourself or someone with one of our online gift certificates or just come in and allow us to take good care of you. Take good care of yourself and allow us to do the rest.
We just saw the Face Place. Now it's time for Patricia Thompson.
I'm Patricia Thompson. I'm a consultant nutritionist working in private practice, and I have a focus on school nutrition through a charity, the Jamaica Island Nutrition Network. Each person has to eat for themselves. Nobody can eat for you. So it's one of those health practices that has to be self-responsibility. You know, you can go to the gym and get a coach. We do have coaching for nutrition, but then once you are on your own, it's your responsibility in a single day. So that is not too hard because we have a whole range of foods, whether fresh foods, convenience foods, prepared food, pre-prepared foods, So basically that's a general guideline for any person, whether busy or not busy. Persons who are busy tend to depend on somebody else in preparing their meals. And invariably, if they buy out meals at a restaurant or a caterer or wherever, they only get 2 of the food, 2 to 3. They get the starches, what we call the staple foods. They get the food from animal for the protein, and they get fat. And they neglect 3 groups, that is the legumes, peas, beans, and nuts. They neglect fruits, and they neglect vegetables. And so what we recommend, therefore, is they plan snacks around those 3 groups. So, for example, the legume, the nuts, persons would try to buy nuts. Okay, and the fresher the nuts, the better. Like, for example, peanuts with the red skin, you get more nourishment than if you buy it processed with a lot of salt. Okay, fruits, you get fresh fruits, or you can have dried fruits, because I know people are busy and they don't have time to go to supermarket, or you buy fruits that will last a while, like the oranges. Okay, you can have somebody else peel them for you, and all you have to do is cut and eat. And then you have vegetables. Some vegetables can be eaten raw, so that's very easy to snack on them. Like, for example, the carrots, cucumbers. Some people snack on cucumbers or things like that you can eat raw. So you build your meals around 3 of the food groups, and you build your snacks around the other 3 food groups, so that all 6 groups will be represented in any single day. If you do meals for yourself, what you try to do is to prepare ahead of time. So let's say you are working during the week and you have the weekend off. What you will do is, for example, I have an ackee tree, and ackee has a season. So each morning I will go out and I will pick my ackees and dress them, and then I will parboil them. Okay? Then I put them in a bag or a paper container, and we put that in the fridge. So that is prepping ackee. So we don't have to spend a lot of time when we are ready to eat, because we just take it out of the fridge. The fish is already prepared as well too, and kept in the freezer. You have to, with your saltfish, you have to get out the salt out of it. So you have to soak it, and then you have to boil out the salt and shred it so you take out the bones. So everything is prepared ahead of time. Your vegetables can be parboiled and put in the fridge. You see? So when you're ready, all you're taking it out. Sometimes if they are in nice sealing bags, you just pop them in a pot of boiling water, and that defrosts it, and then you put them in the plate and you're ready to go. Both things go together. They're not separate, and I'll tell you why. So we said 3 food groups. You have the legumes, which for snacks you would use nuts. You have the fruits, which you would try to use fresh fruits because it's easy. A guava, for example, I have a guava tree. I'll just pick a guava and I can eat it, and then your vegetables. So that one is not so easy, okay, because you only have a few that you can eat, say, raw, like a tomato. You just eat your tomato raw as if it were a fruit. The problem is Jamaican people don't like fruits and vegetables like that because they say it's fresh. So they want to put a lot of salt. And that is the problem. They want to salt down Jew plum, and they salt down jackfruit, and they salt down everything, and it is too much salt. The body cannot handle all of that salt, right? So what I suggest then is if you prep your fruits, you put them in a little vinegar with some pepper. So when you're ready now, you put them in a container and you can carry that with you. That way, you spice up your fruits a little bit, But if you're going to take it and the fresh fruit and put so much salt on it. So the problem is really not the food you should not eat. It's really the condiments, say, that you're going to use, to make it more acceptable to your taste. And please don't give the children salt on fruits. Because when they are young, they don't know the difference, and their brain can't really handle it. And so you are teaching them to like plenty salt. You are teaching them to like plenty sugar. When you mix juice with so much. If you do beet juice, for example, that is already sweet. It's the beetroot that they take the sugar from. So you don't need to add water and mix up with sugar. Drink the juice, get this sweet taste, and then drink plain water after that to make sure you're properly hydrated to keep away the constipation, right? Because when you mix juice, you then add too much sugar. So basically, it's how you prepare your foods and how you eat your foods, the way you train your body to desire certain tastes and textures. Your chips, your banana chips, your plantain chips, your cassava chips, those are good because they have the fiber still there. Okay, you don't need that amount of salt. The crispiness takes away the desire for that amount of salt. So, how you prepare your foods, how you eat your foods are so much more important than what to eat and what not to eat. Now, a large part of eating healthy is how much you eat relative to your personal nutrition needs. And I'm sure everybody is familiar with the word calories by now. Okay? Eating the right amount of calories. And this is where people go wrong. Because they think that if they eat certain foods that are healthy, they will be low in calories. This is not so. Healthy food, in fact, tends to give you a lot of calories. So healthy food, meaning those that are high in calcium, whether it is cheese, yogurt, or so on, tend to have calories. If they are high in iron, like say your liver, they are going to give you some calories. Okay? So if you are going to get the full nourishment, which is very important, it is a balanced intake of nutrients, you're going to get calories. So you need to know how to manage these amounts of foods. And I prepared the Caribbean calorie counter with all kinds of Caribbean foods, whether it is fresh foods, homemade foods, convenience foods, easy to, food service restaurants, regular restaurants, foods of all kinds, foods that come in tins, in bottles, whatever. And so the Caribbean calorie counter will explain to you how to determine your caloric need and the various foods from the different food groups, right? That will give you. And I've developed a system whereby a set quantity of food, which is usually equated to the household measure, will give you 100. So it's easy like counting your dollars. Each day, for example, if you allot yourself, say, 1,500 or 1,800 calories to spend, it's like spending $1,500 or $1,800. Okay? And it means that you will have 15 foods at 100 calories each to give you your 1,500 calories for the day. So this is available on www.jamaicanutrition.com. Okay? So you can purchase it directly. You can contact me, or you can go on the Amazon, but it might be a little bit more expensive on the Amazon because it's quoted in US dollars, not Jamaican dollars. Okay? So that is one way of doing it. The other thing about eating healthily for yourself again is when you eat, your meal timing. And that is according to when you are being active. So if you work in the day, you are active in the day. That's when you need to do most of your eating. If you work at night and you're active at night, that's when you need to do more. Because food is supposed to fuel activity. You're an athlete, you're playing, that's when you fuel your activity. You don't eat at 12 o'clock and then go to the gym at 6 o'clock and you have nothing at all in between. Your exercise will not be productive. All you would do then is break down your muscle, and that is not good. So you fuel activity, you fuel exercise. And so you allow yourself now, when you are not active, right, to eat at least 2 hours before you retire. And then your period away from food will be about 12 hours. We call it your overnight fast. So you fast when you are not active, and you eat when you are active. So those are the basic guidelines, to eat healthy when you are a busy person. It's the same for all persons, really. But busy persons need to plan ahead and to make sure that they follow all these guidelines.
Amazing. Thank you, Ms. Thompson. On that note, let's check out our next self-care tip. Detox from social media for a while. Stay away from smartphones, laptops, and iPads for a few hours and stay in tune with your surroundings. Disconnect from the dreaded digital world and connect to those around you. Hope you're staying informed. Comment below if you're enjoying the show. Up next, we have Adam and Eve's Day Spa.
My name is Jody and Dixon. We're here at Adam and Eve today. We're doing a facial and Natalie's face. Upon observation, during consultation, we realized that Natalie has a lot of pores and she has hyperpigmentation and uneven skin tone. So we decided to go along with our Rainforest line of products. We decided to use our glycolic line. Glycolic facials are normally recommended for persons with uneven skin tone and especially combination skin. So we want to create a balance. So step one for a facial, we go in with our glycolic cleanser. We normally cleanse twice if it's needed. Step two, we go in with our glycolic toner just to make sure all the residue is lifted off the skin and ready for the exfoliant. After the exfoliant, we go in with our steam. The exfoliant is used on the face to soften and to open the pores along with the steam. After that, we go in with our extractions if needed. 1 and 2 pimple here and there, little blackheads, whiteheads, depending. Another step that we'll take is to remove the products. After doing so, we place the skin or the skin under the LED lamp to see if we need to add any other product. After doing so, we go right in with our facial mask. So after the mask, remove the mask and remove any excessive product that is left. After removing the mask and cleaning off the skin, we go in with our serums. Our serums are nourishing. We go in with our moisturizer.
Hi everyone, I am Melanie from Adam and Eve Day Spa, and I'm here to demonstrate how to do home care using Adam and Eve skincare line. Well, today I'm going to be using, first starting with my cleanser to cleanse the debris from my skin. And all you're going to need is just a pea size because it's very potent. And you massage it in, it's very gentle on the skin. So after we tone, we move on to our Adam and Eve enzyme exfoliant. I do my high frequency treatment. Okay, so after my high frequency treatment, I move on to my Adam and Eve moisturizer. These products are awesome.
Adam and Eve is located at 56 Holdorf Road. The team here at Adam and Eve is here to cater to your overall rejuvenation and relaxation.
Adam and Eve was exceptional. Up next, we have Dr. Neil Gardner.
I'm Dr. Neil Gardner, chiropractic neurologist at Gardner Chiropractic and Neurology Limited. We're located at 8 Tremaine Road, Kingston 6, Jamaica, on the north side of the National Stadium along Mountain View Avenue. It is with great pleasure that I participate in the Gleaner Premium Health, Beauty and Wellness Show, and to be able to share information with all you wonderful persons out there who may either accidentally stumble upon us, or you may be deliberately looking for a better way of improving your health. Chiropractors look for natural approaches to dealing with health conditions by improving the spinal function, because the nerves that exit the spine control the majority of the functions of our bodies. And so we want to make sure that the spine is healthy so that we are healthy. There are ways of organizing it so that it makes sense to a chiropractor like me, because when I see the spine or when I see conditions, I try to link it back to how does it relate to the spine? How does it relate to the human condition? Most people assume that headaches are because of a problem in the brain or in the head. Most headaches do not originate from the head. Most headaches actually originate from the neck. This is what most people don't realize. In my experience, it's well over 80% of all headaches that people will experience are really neck-related headaches. We call them cervicogenic headaches. But migraines also may fall into this category, where it's a neck issue that sets the stage for a migraine headache. A migraine headache is a headache that involves the blood vessels, typically on one side of the head or the other. And what will happen typically in that situation is that the blood vessel will constrict because of some issue that's going on and reduce blood flow to parts of the brain. The brain will in turn secrete a chemical to cause the blood vessel to now dilate in response to the lack of oxygen. So when the lack of oxygen is going on in the part of the brain, then that's where you have the auras. That's where you may have the sense of faintness or the sense of a fog or dizziness or some other, light sensitivity. You may smell things, you may taste things that are not there. This is what happens, but that's during the phase that there's limited blood flow. When the brain secretes a chemical to dilate the blood vessel, then that dilation is what causes the headache. It's not the lack of oxygen that causes the headache, and that's why the aura comes first. Now when the blood vessel dilates, the blood now rushes to the area and then restores the oxygen levels, but the blood vessels are wrapped by nerve endings. And every time the heart beats and the blood vessel swells, it causes a compression of those nerve endings, and it's as if we can feel the heartbeat pounding and pounding and pounding in our heads. But it's really because of how it's pulsating there. And so the solution for many people with migraines is not even to go and do a CT scan. It's less likely that you have a brain tumor if you're having a migraine headache than it is that you're having a neck issue. So what I always do is I investigate the neck first, because that's where most of them will come from. And if I find an issue with the neck, there's a very easy way to know whether or not it's causing the problem without having to do any expensive tests. Well, it's simply to just take your finger, especially if you have pain somewhere in your neck, but usually it's the upper parts of the neck, somewhere in this area, and you just press along your neck with your finger, pushing forward. And you press until you find a tender spot, and you just make a sustained pressure and hold. If the headache starts to lessen, then the headache is coming from that spot. And anyone can do this on their own. When people work very hard, when they get to the end of their day, they end up with a situation where they might be at a computer all day, head down all day. And if it's a neck source, then it may irritate or aggravate that situation, resulting in the onset of the migraine. So a very easy thing to do is constantly making sure that you're, mobilizing your neck gently so that you're not in that one fixed position for too long. Get up from your desk or chair when you're working. But most importantly, you want to make sure that you're maintaining good ergonomics, good posturing while you're working. So if you look carefully here at my setup, we have a desk that has 2 levels here. Not everyone will have this. When we look at this level, the laptop is on a higher level. I have a wireless keyboard and mouse that's attached to this laptop. Because what happens is the keyboard of the laptop, wherever you move the laptop to, the keyboard will move, and so it will no longer be ergonomic for your hands. So I have the wireless keyboard on a lower level so I can type, whereas the laptop is on a higher level, so I'm looking straight ahead at it instead of bending down and working like this. So I would encourage anyone, as a self-care approach, get a wireless keyboard and mouse combination, insert that USB receiver into your laptop, and use that on a lower level so your hands can be comfortable, your shoulders are lowered, and your elbows are down, and you can use it without extending or flexing your wrists. And you put your laptop now on a higher level. You could also use phone books or something to elevate your laptop so that it's at a comfortable reading level. and you can work safer for longer without irritation. Motion is life. And your joints are designed in such a way that when you move them, there's fluid within the joints that circulate within the joints and pump in and out of the joint space that brings nutrients to the joints, flush out waste out of the joints, and so forth. If you stop moving, then your joints have a higher likelihood of seizing up, as we would say. Well, some would say. So if you do not move, then your body starts to decay or decline. So we encourage persons to not, especially if you have knee problems, ankle problems, you already have a joint issue somewhere, don't allow that joint to stay immobilized. But at the same time, you don't want to be overusing the joint, because that too can create a different type of problem. There are many conditions that can occur when we sit at a workstation for a long period of time without changing our position, or especially if our posturing is incorrect. Those conditions may include, especially if it relates to the cervical spine, and the cervical spine and the lumbar spine are the two areas of the spine that are most vulnerable when most people work. What we realize is that the rib cage protects the middle part, the thoracic spine, but the neck and the lower back are the two most vulnerable areas. So if you're sitting at your workstation for a long time, especially with poor ergonomics, what usually ends up happening is we strain our ligaments, tendons, bones, cartilage, the discs, and the nerves of the spine in these poor postures. And so anything that can happen as a consequence of that will become what we will call a condition. For example, you've already touched on migraine headaches, but headaches of other types as well, not just migraine headaches. Sinusitis, numbness and tingling in the hands or fingers. We call this neuropathy. You can have muscle spasms. Here's an interesting one, fatigue. There are some people, they will say, you know what, I just feel so tired all the time. And that's a cervical spine issue that could be resulting in that feeling of fatigue. Not fatigue in the neck, but just general feeling of fatigue. Dizziness is another common one. Persons will find that when they turn, they'll say, Doc, whenever I turn my head over to the right or whatever, I look under my fridge, or I try to pick a mango and I look up, I just feel like I'm going to turn over. These are things that will happen as a consequence of being in a bad position that irritates your spine, because your spine controls the functions of the body, and there are many functions that can go into an inflammatory response as a result of poor posturing. Okay, remember we talked about motion being life, and so moving is always going to be a good way of reducing pain. Some people, we call it mobilizing. So if there's an elbow thing, some people will start to kind of just move it around. If there's a finger pain or issue, you can start by just moving it around yourself. There are many things that one can do. There are different directions which I usually encourage persons to just kind of move their joints around to kind of help. And so I just kind of demonstrate a little bit. So each joint can move in many different planes. So we usually encourage persons to like kind of, if you want to work on this joint right here, you want to try to keep here stable or steady and move the parts above it. So you can go side to side, front to back, turning, twisting, and pulling, pushing. So just a different directions, side to side, front to back, twisting, pulling, pushing. And you can do that with each of your fingers. You can do that with your wrists. Some people, you know, that football stretch where they do this when they're playing their football and they wring their ankles at the same time. These are things that you do, mobilizing the joints. A very good way to get nutrients through the joints to help to reduce pain in the joints. The knees are kind of challenging because the knees are weight bearing. And there are many things that people can do, but I'm going to share something that probably many people don't realize about the knees. The knees don't hurt themselves per se. The knees don't cause the pain that the knees experience, is what I mean. Most knee problems are caused by something else. The main things that will cause knee problem outside of trauma will be imbalances in muscle tension. The muscles that move the knee are the muscles you want to look at, because those are the ones that will create a problem if they are out of balance. The muscles that move the knee primarily are your quadriceps, because the kneecap sits within your quadriceps muscle, your hamstring, because that's the one that causes your leg to bend. Your quadriceps also causes your leg to extend, which is part of that mechanism. But you also have two sets of muscles on the inside of your thighs and the outside of your thighs that also work together to ensure that the kneecap sits centered in the joint, and that when you are extending and bending the knee, the joint doesn't go out of its proper alignment. So most of the time people are having non-traumatic knee pain is because of a muscle imbalance. The number one cause of muscle imbalances that will cause knee problem is sitting for a very long period of time. The understanding of the cause of acid reflux, one of the causes being an issue with your cervical spine, especially the lower part of your cervical spine and the upper part of your thoracic spine. Your thoracic spine is your upper back area. Those two areas can have a role to play in acid reflux. So if that's what's happening for you, proper maintenance of your posture while you're working is important. However, there are other things that can cause acid reflux. One of the other common ones is a hiatal hernia, which is where the stomach gets trapped within the opening, within the diaphragm, that prevents the esophagus from fully closing and causing the condition of whatever it is that's in the stomach to be allowed to be spilled back up into the esophagus. So these are some of the things that can happen as a result of anatomical problems, a hiatal hernia, for example. So if that's the cause of the problem, a different solution is needed. But if it's just a cervical spine issue, what we mentioned about maintaining proper posture is going to help a whole host of conditions, including acid reflux. One of the problems that we've identified with persons is that we're sitting for too long. When we sit for too long, then the conditions that happen as a result of long sitting is what we're dealing with. So what we try to do is encourage persons to change their posture. So if we are able to create a situation where more people are working in a different posture or different position, then it may work out that they may do better. It will change the set of muscles that are involved. So if there is an overuse area because of long sitting in the past, then it will help. So we find persons, we're just locked into a sitting mode. From the moment we wake up to the moment we go back to sleep, the majority of our time is spent seated. So we sit down on the toilet, we stand to brush our teeth, we stand to shower, and then we sit on the bed and we put on our clothes. We go in the dining room and we sit around the table, or we go into our cars with our food and we sit in the car and we sit and we drive to work. As soon as we get to work, we get out of the car, we go straight into the building, and as soon as we get inside, we sit again. And we will remain seated until we need to go to the bathroom, where we will sit again. Or we remain seated until we go to the lunchroom, where we will sit again. And then when we are chilling with our friends, we are sitting and talking. And at the end of the day, we sit in our cars, we drive home, we sit around the table, we help our kids with homework, we eat our food, we go to bed, and we just lie down in our beds. Most of our day is spent sitting. So we need to change that culture and start standing more, walking more, stooping more, and having a situation where at least for a part of your day you're able to stand while you work will certainly help to break the monotony of the constant and prolonged sitting that we almost all are guilty of. Exercise is very helpful. But exercise is not the end all and be all. The notion of exercise can be a good one. It's a good idea. It's a wonderful idea if you're not active in your lifestyle. But being active is way more important than simply exercising. And I'll give you my example. A farmer who works on his farm all day, he's active all day, she's active all day. So their need for exercise is not that great because they are getting activity in their livelihood. if you're in a situation where you're sitting all day, then certainly you need to have time set out in your day where you are doing things to be more active, if you will. But the problem is we are not active enough because we believe that if we exercise for 15 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, 40 minutes a day, then that 40-minute exercise burst will be sufficient to make up for the rest of the day that we are inactive. So I will encourage persons to be constantly active. So yes, it's good to exercise. It's good to work on specific areas that you want to tone up, beach time coming up and you want to have that body and what have you. Not everyone can have an athletic physique. I understand that. I don't judge people. But what I'm saying though is that it's important that we are moving through the day and not simply sitting there and exercising for an hour and a half and then that is it for the rest of the day. We want to be active throughout the day. So if you're talking about being active, getting up from your desk every 45 minutes for about 15 minutes and walking around your office, even if you're just walking to say hello to everybody, just walk around the office, a brisk walk, back and forth, bend down, touch your toes 10 times, do a little gentle twist, do a little limbering, do a little dancing, and then get back to work. And do that 15 minutes every hour. That's a lot of movement that you'll be doing, a lot more than spending a 1 hour exercise. 15 minutes times 4 is 1 hour. 1 hour. And so you find that if you are able to do that for the entire workday, you're working out for probably twice as long as you otherwise would have been without necessarily sweating or panting and so on, and you can still look pretty decent in your clothing. Now, there are purposes behind exercise, and most people think that exercise is the best way to lose weight. Exercise is not the best way to lose weight. Exercise is the best way to become fit. Fitness, you can have fit people who are fat people. There are many fat people who are fitter than many skinny people. So don't misinterpret fitness and size and thinking that they go together. The best way to lose weight is with your nutrition, what you put into your body. That's the best way to lose weight, not exercise. So your nutrition may account for 80% of weight loss. The exercise may only account for 10 to 15%. It doesn't account for that much. And that's why a lot of people, they work out hard. They don't lose any weight and they get frustrated because they're not losing weight. What's wrong with me? I'm exercising, I'm not losing weight. Yeah, you're exercising. Exercising is not the best way to lose weight. So we want people to start moving, not for the sake of weight loss, but for the sake of being active.
Thank you, Dr. Gardner. Now for our final self-care tip. Meditate. Meditation teaches us to separate ourselves from our reactions and simply observe them without attaching emotion or creating additional stress. Good one. Self-care is essential no matter how busy we get. We have heard from a doctor, psychologist, nutritionist, chiropractor, and some of the beauty industry's finest. A special shout out to the Face Place and Adam and Eve Day Spa. Special thank you to EC Makeup Bar for my makeup. Sparkle wherever you go. This has been the Gleaner Premium's Premium Health, Beauty and Wellness. Self-care for the busy professional.